Karen Jacobsen,
Yes.
welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We're here in the beautiful Whitsundays. Yes, turquoise water, clear skies, birds chirping. But this has not always been your home, Karen.
No, it hasn't. It's where I began.
Yeah.
In the beautiful town of Mackay in North Queensland. And gosh, growing up, I just had such a strong desire to live in a big city where it was all happening, to live somewhere where entertainment was happening. So that's what I set my sights on and went and did for a long time.
Can you please take us back to Mackay, Karen? Because I'm also have grown up in Mackay. And, you know, one thing that really intrigued me about talking to you today was that growing up in Mackay, you always heard from like the grapevine and the whispers that the voice of Australian Siri was from Mackay.
Really?
And maybe because it was at that point of time where I guess smartphones and GPSs was just coming out. So
Yeah.
and coming from a small town, if I didn't see any of the interviews you had, could you've been on national television all over the world, and although I didn't have that exposure, we heard about it, but it felt like a bit of a myth. Like because coming from a small town like Mackay, surely a voice as big as Siri cannot come from Mackay, or it was hard to believe, but it's true.
Isn't it fun, though, to think that it wasn't someone who grew up in the inner suburbs of some major city, but somebody from little old Mackay whose voice became one of the first voices to be in these major voice systems. And I was just amazed when the voice system that I recorded started to pop up in these different devices and places, and it's like the gift that keeps on giving because it continues to pop up all over the place.
And we'll dive into that, Karen, because there's also been some challenges with your voice being across over 1 billion devices and smartphones and GPS systems and navigation devices. Though coming back to Mackay, Karen, can you please take us there? And what was it like growing up in Mackay, and what were some of your fondest memories as a child in Mackay?
My fondest memories are of singing because from a very young age, I knew that I loved to sing. And so the story goes, I would be sitting next to the radio, eating my sandwiches when I was about 2 years old, and I would sing along to the radio, and we had a piano in the house. And I was just absolutely attached to the piano. I wanted to make it make sense. And I was then sent to lessons when I was 5. For whatever reason, I found it difficult to focus at that age, so I didn't continue learning then. And it was at the age of 8 that I went back to piano lessons with Mrs. Jensen on Malcolmson Street in North Mackay. And oh my goodness, I was learning the piano, and then I was being entered into singing at the Eisteddfods in Mackay. Now, the Mackay Eisteddfod is a singing competition. It happens every year. It's really very strongly supported. And I was able to learn a song and hop up on the stage at the Theatre Royal, which was just the centre of town to me, and perform. And when I was very young, my voice was so free and true and natural, and it came very easily, and I would win all the singing competitions, and it was just like it was too easy. And somewhere along the way there, I got scared and thought it's not supposed to be this easy, and I sabotaged myself.
What were you scared of, Karen?
I think I was scared of my power. I was scared of having something innate and sparkly that was so natural. And that for some, I think there was this fear people wouldn't like me if I was my true self.
Do you feel growing up in a small conservative town like Mackay breeds that type of culture of being afraid of, especially doing something very artistic?
Yeah.
And did that help you Was that the pull towards the big cities potentially?
Yeah, I think so. And I think you're right on the money there. It's about being a creative child and an artistic child. And I think I felt completely misunderstood. Here I was, someone with just all the desire in the world to be singing and performing and writing songs. You know, I was 7 when the first song idea popped into my head and I had this melody and this lyric and I didn't know how to write it down. I was having to figure out how to write it down and it seemed very important that I figure out how to do that. No one else I knew was writing songs. And I knew from this really young age this was going to be my career, my destiny. And there was a difference. I was different to anyone else for wanting that. And I think that brought discomfort. I basically think the bottom line is I was a misunderstood creative child.
Growing up, Karen, how have you stayed connected to that creative child? And have you not allowed that, well, how do you keep that creative child, that creative childness alive and through your music? Because your music journey has evolved over such a long time. I think you've released, because not only are you the original voice of Australian Siri, you've also released at least 10 albums, I believe. And so you've written over maybe 40 songs.
I've written
songs?
more than that. I've written probably close to 1,000 songs.
1,000 songs, wow.
And I've recorded about 14 albums now.
Okay, wow.
6 of them in the last 5 years or so. I am really in one of the most creative periods of my life right now. But it's
why is that, Karen? Because has moving back to where we are now.
Yes, it's been very, very inspiring. You know, I had there are so many answers to that question. I had a real shift in 2019 when I took a look at, you know, what am I really here for? What am I here on the planet for? And the answer that comes is to really to make an impact and to be uplifting and to be empowering and inspiring. But how to do that? And in my heart of hearts, being a songwriter is the core of who I am and the messages that I have to share. And that was a part of, you know, it was like that from a very young age. But the expectations out in life take over at certain points. And I had gone very singularly toward my singing career for a long time. Then my speaking voice ends up unexpectedly finding its way into billions of GPS and smartphone devices and elevators and cruise ships and software applications. And it became clear that there was a brand to create, and I did that, and I've written 2 of the many books I intend to write. So music took somewhat of a back seat because the energy was around that and around creating that brand. And I also became a parent at that time. So there were a number of years where it was not so straightforward to make music and record music and release music. Financially, that's a real, it's becoming somewhat of a luxury to be able to do that. You know, we've never had more opportunity to connect directly with an audience, and it's never been more difficult to actually connect with your audience.
Yeah.
So it was in 2019 where I had this realization. And
while you were living in New York City?
Yeah, while I was living in New York City. And I was like, okay, our son is 12. I have built up this brand and this speaking business. But what I need to do for me to be right with myself is to be writing songs and recording them. And so that's what I did. And I found out it was actually two memorable things happened in that time. One was I felt really called to get more serious about my meditation practice. So I did the TM, the Transcendental Meditation course, and started to meditate twice a day, every day, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon, which frightened me as a commitment, but that's now what I do. And I joined the iHeart Songwriting Club, which is an organization where you're put into a group and given a task and you write a song every week. And so since I think August of 2019, I've been in that structure with my songwriting group, writing a song every week.
Wow.
Without fail, I've been writing 52 songs at least a year. And so one of the reasons that I now have so many albums I'm recording is I've just got this real volume of
This
material.
accumulation of music, yeah.
Yeah, and I have a lot to say.
Yeah. I'm so glad we've arrived here because I would love to touch more on your meditation practice, Karen.
Excellent.
I think also the two books that you've written are kind of like journals. They're like a journal type style of book, if that's
right.
fair to say.
Absolutely.
And they offer a lot of reflective practice and some very fundamental questions you can ask yourself and almost like self-development. And
That's
so
right.
can you please take us back to the moment that you started meditating, and why did you start meditating, Karen?
It goes further back to when I first moved to New York City. I was 31 years of age. And at that time, the excitement and the energy of the city, I absolutely loved it. But I felt drawn to start practicing yoga. And I was going to yoga classes frequently, 3+ times a week. And it was at yoga that I first had a regular experience of meditating just for a few minutes in Shavasana at the end of the yoga class. And I really enjoyed the meditation, but I didn't make time very often for meditation much longer than those few minutes at the end of a yoga class. And it frustrated me that I hadn't broadened my meditation experience, because I was doing a lot of personal and professional development and learning about the benefits of meditation and how it reduces our chances of all kinds of major disease, let alone how centered and rejuvenated we can feel.
Also with creativity.
And then the creative benefits of becoming quiet every day. And so it was 2011, July 7th of 2011, and I remember the date. And I was talking to a very close friend, Valley, and I was sharing my frustration with myself that I wasn't able to commit and keep a commitment to meditate every day. Because I'd spoken to someone else who said, oh, if you're going to do regular meditation, you need to meditate at least 30 minutes every day, and it needs to be first thing in the morning before you do anything else. Now, at the time, I had a 3-year-old, and anyone who has had anything to do with young children and tiny children will know that the first 30 minutes of the day, not going to happen.
Yes.
So I was already kind of feeling behind in this quest to figure out how to meditate regularly. And my friend Valley said, well, look, how many minutes a day do you need to meditate to feel like you're actually doing enough? And I happened upon 15 minutes a day, and she really helped me to create a structure for myself, which was 15 minutes a day. And it didn't matter what time of the day I did that. And it could be the last 15 minutes before I turn out the light at night, but it would be silent meditation. So from the 7th of July, 2011 until today, I have not missed a day. And I've meditated at least 15 minutes a day, but actually 40 minutes a day since August of 2019. And I share that with you not to be impressive, but just to say that for me, I knew it was really important that I was able to commit to that daily practice, and the biggest benefit being that I've kept that promise to myself.
I'm so happy to hear this, Karen, and that's as a fellow meditator as well.
I was going to ask you if you meditate.
As a fellow meditator, I mean, I'm so curious and love to hear about people's stories, and it's so nice to hear too that you arrived at meditation through yoga, because I think I really resonate with that. I was experimenting with yoga and again in Shavasana at the end, and it was just something always intrigued me about meditation and the journey has definitely evolved into, I guess the tradition that I've gone down into is the Vipassana transition.
Oh,
So
amazing.
10 days silent meditation,
Yes.
retreats. And what is it about the silence, Karen, that, because a lot of people are afraid of the silence.
With good reason,
Yeah.
because if you're in the silence, guess what? You're just with you.
Yeah.
You're with all of those thoughts,
Mhm.
many of which are not good.
Mhm.
They're not helpful.
Mhm.
So I completely understand why meditation is something that people will avoid,
Mhm.
because being left with yourself and your very own thoughts with nothing else
Yeah.
can be very scary. And it was for me in the beginning, because we all have these thought patterns that are not constructive.
Mhm.
But I am a huge advocate for silent meditation. And yes, there are lots of lovely meditations. You can listen to someone speaking, you can listen to music, you can do all kinds of things. But can you be with just the silence? Can you be with just the thoughts that are coming into your mind and letting them go and bringing yourself back to the breath? And it's my experience that that's true power.
Yeah.
And I understand that we are in a society where finding your true love and making $1 million and having a super yacht are really exciting.
Yeah.
But can you be with just your own thoughts and be centered? Can you do that?
Yeah, and again, in a society, Karen, where, you know, we galvanize just continuous striving for success, and we're so distracted now more than ever with technology and social media.
And when is it enough?
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with my sister on the drive here
Yeah.
because we've both been reading a really powerful book about this. Like, when is it enough? Guess what? It's not going to be. And in fact, I just recently read that most people of whatever financial level they are think that if they only had 2 to 5 times more than they have right now, they'd be okay.
Yeah.
I know I interrupted you, but
No.
you know, I can be bossy.
Not at all, Karen. I'm loving, and the audience is loving listening to you. And, you know, also, I think, like you said, you've had to make the time for the silence.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And Tony Robbins said that, you know, if you don't have 10 minutes for your life, you don't have a life.
No, you don't. Well, your life is running you. Let's put it that way.
And so coming back to Mackay, Karen, and being a young girl, there was a particular person in your life that inspired you deeply and I guess propelled you onto a trajectory of what was your dreams. Could you tell us who that person was?
Oh, I can. So I was in Mount Pleasant and I was in the living room watching the telly, and on came the most important and most influential person in the entire world, Olivia Newton-John. And when I saw her, my life changed and I knew my destiny. I knew I wanted to become...
In that moment?
Yeah, a professional singer and moved to America. And here was this blonde Australian singer who'd gone overseas, and in America, everybody loved her, and I wanted to be just like her. I wanted that for myself. So I just related to whatever she was emanating on that interview, and I just felt crystal clear. This is where I'm going.
It's so interesting that in that moment, your life direction was so clear. And I'm so curious about that because, you know, so many people wander in their life and it maybe comes a bit later or there's a lot.
Never.
Yeah, never. Why do you think that is, Karen? And yeah, where does that crystal clear clarity for some people come? And for other people, it's not very clear and they maybe have to search a bit harder or they have to try many different things. You know, I finding that calling, that love of what you're going to do at 7 years old is I think it's very lucky. Yeah.
It is. Although then for someone who that doesn't happen for, wow, all the space to explore and try different things, which wasn't the case for me because it was just so clear. You know, where does that come from? I'm not sure. But what I do think is that we all know exactly what we would love to be doing. I believe that. And I think there's just a tremendous amount of noise between what I call our inner GPS and the world. You know, it is just the noise, the distraction. You described it before. It is just immense, the overstimulation. If you take that away and you leave yourself with only the quiet, the silence. But look, a 10-day meditation retreat is epic and life-changing. But as little as 2 minutes a day, every day, is going to set you on the pathway to being able to listen to your true voice.
Yeah, 2 minutes a day for a long period of time, I believe, is much more beneficial than just 10 days and then you set and forget and never do it again.
That's interesting to hear you say that, knowing that you're a Vipassana practitioner.
Yeah, definitely.
You have practiced Vipassana. But what I know is that cumulatively, the 2 minutes a day has a tremendous power. And in my book, I say 2 minutes a day, and I mean it. And anyone can find 2 minutes a day, but are they willing to, you know?
And you just touched on, Karen, your inner GPS, which has been, I guess, the idea and the focus around your personal brand and your motivational speaking. Can you talk to how you recalculated your own life from becoming the voice of a billion devices and using that and utilizing that to your strength?
Well, do you want me to talk about how my voice ended up in the GPS?
Yeah, take us wherever you'd like to.
So I was in New York City. I'd been there in the early years. And there was an audition and a client was looking for a native Australian female voiceover artist living in the northeast of the United States. And I read that brief and I was like, this is a description of me. And I went to the audition. And
can you take us to what the audition was like?
So the audition was in a tiny little studio and the client had a script and they wanted me to say some words like, at the next intersection, turn left and you have reached your destination. And everybody's not so favorite recalculating.
Hopefully it's not playing in that truck right now that's driving past.
I have hopped into many cars.
Recalculating down the hill and away from us.
Exactly. So I shared these directions. I recorded these directions in the studio and then they had me come back into the control room and they said, well, you've got the job. And I got the job on the spot. Now, in the entertainment business, this is not usual. That's happened very, very few times in my life.
Had you already had previous experience doing voiceover work? Okay.
Years and years of voiceover work. However, to get a job on the spot like that was very different. They said, look, we need to take you up to Ithaca, New York, and it's a town several hours north of New York City. We need you for 3 weeks. We're going to put you in a hotel, and we only want to record a maximum of 4 hours a day because we don't want your voice to sound tired or fatigued in any way. So we're going to be recording for 50 hours. We have this big script.
4 weeks, 4 hours a day for 3 weeks. Every day.
That's right. And so in the morning, I arrived up there. They came and got me. They took me to the studio. There was the script. We recorded for 4 hours. And then that was it. I went to lunch. Then I went back to my hotel room to rest my voice. And that happened for 3 weeks. And at the end of that time, I went back to my life in New York City as a singer and songwriter. 2 years later, I received a phone call from a girlfriend. She said, oh, Karen, I bought my husband one of those new GPS thingos and we're driving right now from Maine back to Manhattan after the Christmas holiday. And he said, "Oh, put it onto the Australian voice." So I did. I put it onto the Australian voice and oh my God, Karen, it is you. It's your voice in the GPS. And I turned to my husband and I said, "Oh no. I bought you Karen Jacobsen for Christmas." And that is how I found out that my speaking voice had ended up in all these devices around the world.
No one contacted you. No one let you know from the company.
They didn't let me know that that's what was going to be happening next. And it was just a surprise that this is what happened. So it was a while later where people started to say, "Oh my goodness, you're the voice in my car. You're the voice in my GPS." And there was starting to be some notoriety and people noticed that. And I knew there was something in it because they were very familiar with me and happy to meet me and excited to talk with me. There was that familiarity is not usual. And I knew there was something to harness. And it did take a while, but ultimately I suppose it was a vision where I could see that the word recalculating in the car and rerouting could be, that analogy could be used in life and in business, and to be able to recalculate in everyday life. So I ultimately created the 5 directions for recalculating process. I wrote the GPS Girls Roadmap for Your Future, the first journal style book. I wrote my second book, Recalculate, the GPS Girls Directions for Driving Performance Success. And all through this period began my speaking business and was invited to come and speak at events and share the story of how my voice ended up in GPS devices. But I used that opportunity to then share these tools on how to navigate change powerfully.
Could you walk us through, Karen, this five-step process to help us recalculate your life?
Absolutely. So the 5 directions for recalculating start with the first direction, which is to notice you are off route.
How important is this one, Karen, noticing? Because I remember a saying from an Indian guru and it said, noticing or being aware of the problem is 50% of the problem.
I love hearing that because to me, it is the first step. Things cannot be going the way you would like them to have been going for quite some time, but it isn't until you notice that you can do something about it. The second direction is to be willing to change direction. And this is the most challenging one because you can notice things aren't going the way you'd like them to go. But if you aren't willing to do anything about it, if you aren't willing to shift your perspective or your actions, it will stay the same. So to be willing to change direction.
Can people, willingness, I think of people who are addicted to substances and they're willing, are they willing to, they really want to stop.
Right.
And is the will there? I mean, it's so difficult to change direction. How can people who are in a situation where they want to change, whether it be coming out of addiction or depression or even something so small that can seem so large.
Yes.
How can people take action and how can people come out of those patterns and be willing?
So I am not a professional in some of
course.
those very serious circumstances. And what does someone have at stake? What is important enough to be willing would be the question I would be asking. Sometimes if we are in a pattern of things not going so well for us, it can be a rut, and it can be habitual. But if we are willing to shift, even in the slightest way, the way we're going about things, the energy shifts. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about recalculating. It's about shifting the energy. But I would answer your question by saying, what is going to be something important enough to be willing. And we've all had it happen ourselves or seen others. Sometimes it's easier to see it in others where, one day they just woke up and they were sick and tired of being sick and tired. They, January 1st rolled around and they joined a gym and they started taking vitamins and they really drew a line in the sand and they said, enough. And they kept going past January 31st. Mm-hmm. So what is that moment? Yeah. What is important enough to do something about it? And I think that meditation example is relevant here too, because are you someone who's willing to keep your promise to yourself, keep your word to yourself? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Karen. You're spot on. I think if you cannot do it for yourself, oftentimes people look to do it for the other people that they love most in life, whether a grandchild comes or there's a new partner, and that's beautiful. And so step 3, Karen?
Well, and I'm going to lead to direction number 3, but that can be a fantastic, important reason. And if it's not sustaining, being able to do it for yourself is key along in partnership, because they are incredibly valid reasons that you just shared. So I just wanted to add to that. So the third direction for recalculating is to clarify your destination. So if we've noticed that we're off route and we are willing to change direction, new information can have come to light. And now we want to take a look back at where we thought we were headed and we think, okay, am I still headed to that same destination or has it changed? Am I on a detour to the same place or has it completely shifted and I'm now headed somewhere else? And that can be a good thing. So it's to clarify your destination.
Could I push back on this idea a little bit,
Oh,
Karen?
you go for it.
What do you feel about, how do you feel about this, the journey, but the person that you become along the destination? It's very cliche though. Sometimes when we clarify our destination, not clarify our destination, but we're so set on a particular destination, we become lost of the person that we're becoming towards that destination. And so is there any advice you can offer to not only the destination and arriving and clarifying, but also on staying present?
Yeah. So the whole ethos of recalculating is being able to shift and to be able to shift without it being rigid and painful. So just noticing that things aren't going the way you want them to, noticing that you're off route, and then being willing to take a look. Clarifying is truly being present. It's actually being able to be present and accept where things are and take a look at where we would love to be going. So there is a lot of flow in this process. So I think we're actually talking about the same kind of methodology.
And step 4, Karen?
To embrace the steering wheel. Now, this is about getting yourself ready to go for it. Because if you have now clarified your destination and you know that, oh, I thought I was heading there, but no, now I'm heading there. It's there can be this moment, almost like this breath before you go for it. So getting ready to go for it. So it's really imagining putting our hands on the steering wheel and getting ourselves in gear. And that preparation of, okay, here we go. That is how I would describe embrace the steering wheel.
You mentioned in your first book, Karen, that at the age of about 24, you felt like you finally had control of the steering wheel. Looking back on that time, what happened? And at that point in time, how did you feel you arrived at being at the steering wheel?
So I think you're referring to the beginning of my love for personal development, which really kicked in at around that age. And I had the opportunity to attend Anthony Robbins.
Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Did you walk
Awaken.
across fire?
I walked across fire. And it was life-shifting.
Wow.
And this is the period where I first was aware. I had already been creating my life. But this is where I really brought an awareness to, oh my goodness, I am actually having something to do with this. I'm not just fortunate that these opportunities are showing up. There is something about the way I am showing up in the world that is having these moments come to meet me in this way. And it was extremely empowering to discover that.
What did you unlock? I mean, Unlock Your Inner Power by Tony Robbins. What did you unlock? Do you remember walking away from that Tony Robbins? What insight and...
It was choice. It was that I have the choice to experience my life the way I choose to experience it. And it's that difference between being reactive to what happens to you in life and being someone who creates your life. That is the shift. And that is the really, that was the monumental learning for me at that age. And it was a powerful, so super powerful.
And so at that point in time, were you living in Sydney at that time?
I was in Sydney at that time.
And from then to 2000, which was, I believe, 6 or 7 years, you were on many radios for singing and performing, and you were, from what I understand, living your dream of being a singer and songwriter. Though at the age of 30,
at 30, I realized, everyone else around me is taking these next steps in their lives to live their dream. And my dream is to move to America, and I've stopped short. I'm in Sydney, and Sydney's great. And I had a great amount of work. I was making a great living in the entertainment business, but I really wanted to take that next pretty terrifying step and move to America.
Did you ever lose sight of that dream, Karen, of New York? Before you moved?
It was always there, the dream of moving to America, all through my teens and my 20s, and I couldn't figure out how I was going to go about it. So it was there, but it hadn't fully come to the fore of, it's now and this is how.
How did you figure it out, Karen?
I was sitting in the audience at the Theatre Royal in Sydney during a production of the musical Rent.
Rent?
Rent. And Rent is set in New York City. And I was watching the show, and I had a really powerful emotional experience watching the show. And it was truly one of those bolts from the blue where I was like, I have to move to New York. I have to move to New York. That's what happened. And that's not a story I've shared that I can remember publicly, but it was woo-woo, but it was so clear. You have to move to New York. And I remember calling a girlfriend from the audience. I went to see that show on my own. And I called her and I said, oh my goodness, I have just discovered I have to move to New York. And the time is now. So I actually spent the next 6+ months saving money, getting myself ready, embracing the steering wheel to move to New York.
When you think of this thing that you've called inner GPS.
Yes, it was screaming at me.
Is that your inner GPS?
My inner GPS was very loud and clear. Yeah.
How does it feel on the body? And because is it a thought? It's not a thought, right?
No, it's like a total alignment.
Yeah.
And we've all had it. We all know those moments where we know exactly what there is to do.
Could I please share? I'm resonating with this. I'm resonating with this so much because I remember this too, that I was in a meditation retreat and I grew up not really understanding and was completely ignorant of my Nepali heritage and half of my blood, half of my culture. And one day I was sitting in the silence, like we've spoken about, and it was like just in a moment, it's just incredible. In a moment, I realized that I have to go to Nepal.
Great.
And it was an unquivering clarity of there was no questioning it. It was just now you have a few months to go, and without any fear of it not happening, because I knew it was going to happen. I think just like how there was an unquivering clarity that you were going to New York. And so I guess coming back to the how doesn't matter.
The how doesn't matter.
You'll make it happen.
Well, and it seems like you make it happen. But what I think is going on is that the energy rises up to support the clarity and the truth of you listening to your inner self.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some alignment with, and one of my powerful teachers, Sophie McLean, will say that it's connecting with what life wants of you.
Mm.
So it's not only this is what I want and I'm going to make it happen. It's no, life wants you to do this. Life and the energy and the circumstances show up and almost propel us, even though there are challenges along the way. And some of those challenges are self-created because it can seem scary to have things flow so easily sometimes. But there's just such a rightness. And when you do listen to your inner GPS, it doesn't ever steer you wrong. Mm-hmm. That is my experience and my belief.
And so your inner GPS took you to New York City. And is it true that you moved there on the 4th of July?
I did.
In 2000. I mean, what a date to move to America on, the 4th of July at the start of a millennium. How symbolic. Was that the plan?
Was it
planned?
I knew I was leaving that year, and then the way it unfolded, I had a farewell concert at the Basement in Sydney, which was very special. Mm-hmm. I invited a lot of performers who I love and who are close friends to come and perform with me at that concert. And then off I went, and I traveled for 6 weeks in Asia and in Europe before I went then and arrived in New York. And so that brought me to the week of the 4th of July, and I looked at the flights and the timeline, and I was like, is there any reason why I wouldn't fly on the 4th of July? And I thought, no, so I'll book it on that day. So I did.
What does the 4th of July mean in America? What is it?
It's the anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. So it's my personal day of independence. And I will joke and say they have fireworks for me every year on my anniversary of arriving in New York City.
Wow, how symbolic. I mean, what an independent move. And every time I think of 4th of July now, Karen, I think I'm going to think of you.
Excellent.
And so also you say in your first book that, your inner GPS gave you, whether it gave you anything, but there was 4 major decisions. One was moving to New York City. The other was your marriage.
Yes.
With Tom.
That's right.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you met Tom? Where were you and what was that like?
I had gone to do a performance in a town called Saratoga Springs with my close friend Jenny Bruce. And we were part of a lineup of singer-songwriters on that evening. And one of the singer-songwriters was a local artist, Jess Hudak. And because she was the local artist, she was kind enough to provide the electric piano for all of the artists to use. So we walked into the venue, Jenny and I, and Jess was there sound checking on the piano. And I walked up and thanked her so much for allowing us to use the piano. She said, this piano, my Uncle Tom gave me this piano. This was Madonna's piano on the Blonde Ambition tour. I'm like, okay. So I heard about my future husband, Tom, in the first sentence or minutes of meeting Jess Hudak. And after the show, I met Jess's dad, Johnny, who was a huge, and still is, a huge supporter of singer-songwriters, and his daughter was beginning to be a professional singer-songwriter. And he was really gracious in inviting us to come when for future performances in the region, to come and stay at their home, and instead of a hotel or driving back to New York City after the show. And it was an opportunity for us to help mentor Jess along the way. And I became close friends with Jess and with Johnny, and I used to call myself an honorary Hudak because they would invite me to different events. And on one occasion, a couple of years later, I was invited to a family event in New York City. Jess had since moved down to the city, and I arrived at that dinner at Josie's on the Upper West Side, and the infamous Uncle Tom was there, and that's how I met my husband.
Was it love at first sight?
It was definitely, we were seated next to each other, and my experience is so vivid that I knew we were kindred spirits, and we made plans to stay in touch. So there was a connection right away. But it took the better part of a year from then for us to find each other. Yeah.
And people will think of the voice of Siri, Karen, and someone who has had so much, I guess, exposure around the world, that there's a lot of money, right? But that's not really the case. Like you and Tom went through a difficult time with finances, and I think people from a surface point of view, often they think that the voice of Siri must be a millionaire or was a millionaire back then. Could you take us back to the challenges that you dealt with and with Tom financially in New York City?
So during that time, and I will say that a lot of people think, because my voice is in billions and billions of devices and has been for many years, that I'm making millions of dollars a year from that. And that is, I would love that to be the case.
Yeah. We'll go there a bit later.
Yeah. So, but at that time, Tom and I were married 4 months after we got together, and I married the love of my life. And now he was divorced, but financially he wasn't totally, completely divorced. And as we started to untangle that situation, that led to a lot of legal time and legal bills, and that lasted for 5 years.
Yeah.
And we were living in New York City. We were doing our best to figure it out, but we started to incur a little tiny bit of credit card debt to make ends meet. And anyone who's had a little tiny bit of credit card debt might know that a little tiny bit of credit card debt can start to add up and suddenly become a whole heck of a lot of credit card debt. And sometime later, we were in a situation where we had more credit card debt than we could manage. And at that time, the interest rates were super crazy. It was, we needed to come up with a solution. And we did. We came into a small amount of money, not enough to pay off the credit card debt, but actually enough to be the down payment on a property. And we recalculated. We came up with a plan. And here was our plan, that we would buy that property, and then the following month we would refinance that property and put all of that debt, that credit card debt, at 30% interest rates, which they were allowed to have at that time, and put them down into an 8% mortgage. It was a really good plan. However, we closed on our apartment on the 28th of August of 2007. And I called our mortgage guy and I said, Tim, it's Karen. We have bought the apartment and we would really love to refinance and put all of that credit card debt down into our mortgage. And Tim said, I'm sorry, Karen, but with the GFC, the global financial crisis, those subprime mortgages that you would have been able to have, we legally can't give you one of those anymore, so I can't help you. So we were stuck. We had this beautiful new place that we didn't want to leave, but we could not afford to live there. And in fact, we limped along for a few more months, but we couldn't actually find the money at this time for groceries. It's not something I think about too much anymore, but it was at that time, it was horrendous. So we at this time, the industry, the music industry, which my husband works in, and my industry were hit very hard by the global financial crisis. And at this time, I was 6 months pregnant with our son, and we hit rock bottom. It is, I like to say it is never too late to recalculate, and it is never too late to recalculate. But we knew at this point, we needed to find a way to recalculate. We needed to find a way out of this situation. And so we came up with a plan. We called a real estate agent, and we had that real estate agent find us a tenant to rent our home to so that we could be bringing in some money right away to help pay our mortgage. I called the airlines and booked frequent flyer point tickets for my husband and now our baby son and I to fly to Australia. And we did that. And we came out to Australia and we lived with my parents.
In Mackay or here?
They were in Brisbane, at the
okay.
time. And so we came out to live with my parents. I mean, how embarrassing to be a grown woman with a husband and a baby and move back in with your parents. We were so lucky to have them. So lucky that they helped us.
What did that teach you about love, Karen?
I think I was in such a heightened state of shock and embarrassment for such a long time through that period. That's such a beautiful question to hear because to be asked. What did that teach me about love? I think now as a parent, I can see that you just will do anything for your kids. You just want them to be okay, you know.
And the story doesn't end there.
We got out of it.
You got out of it, yeah.
Happy ending.
There is a happy ending.
So we arrived in Australia. I slept for the first 2 weeks. The shock, the emotional and the physical and the financial shock had been so tremendous. And then I set to work. And in fact, on the Sunday night, 2 weeks after arriving, we all sat down to watch 60 Minutes. And on came an interview with Dolly Parton. Now, Dolly Parton was being interviewed and the interviewer said, Dolly, you've been considered a really shrewd, spectacular businesswoman, but you've been underestimated in those business dealings. And what would you have to say about that? And Dolly Parton laughed and she said, oh, honey, by the time they figured out that I know what I'm doing, I've taken the money and run. And there was something about the way she was, she was so free and confident. And it sparked action. in me. And the fifth and final direction of recalculating is to accelerate. And that's all about action. So the next morning I woke up, I was filled with energy, and I got on the phone and I got on my computer and I started to hustle, and I let people know I was in town. I wanted to work. I wanted to be able to do voiceover work and perform and just make a living so we could figure out a way to pay off our bills and move back into our home. And at the end of that day, I sent an email. I went on to the Channel 7 website, where it on Sunrise's page, where they say, do you have a story for us? And I wrote, my speaking voice is in millions and millions of GPSs, and I think that your viewers would love to meet the face behind the voice. And within an hour, the phone rang, they called me, and the next day I was on a plane to Sydney and appeared on Sunrise, which was like a big commercial for Karen is back in Australia and she's available for work. I started to work, and then I got on the phone and I called credit card companies, and I did deals with, a large number of credit card companies. I think it was something like 17 credit card companies, how do you even have 17 credit cards? A lot of credit cards. And I got on the phone one by one, and I did 5 year 0% deals with those companies. You can actually negotiate with your credit card company. So I did these deals and I stopped the bleeding. And we then worked and saved and paid off our bills. And on the 3rd of July of 2011, we made the final payment on our almost $120,000 worth of debt.
The day before 4th of July. Wow.
Aren't you just so good with your dates? Yes. The day before the 4th of July, another day of independence. That is incredible. And it was, I'm here in front of you, in front of everyone, credit card debt free. And it is just so glorious to live that way, having lived month to month, bill to bill, which is there is no freedom in living that way. And I couldn't see how to get ourselves out of that situation, but we did it. We did it.
It's so inspiring, Karen, and as a young person too, I think there's a lot of takeaways too about, I guess, the risks of credit cards and the fact that you were able to turn your life around financially, and to hear that financial burden does play a difficult weight on not only relationships but also your life as well. And
look, my experience is when I've had financial challenges and felt stretched financially like that, I can't focus well on anything else. And I think that that's not an unusual reaction to that. And it is really worth it to clean that up.
Jumping over to music, Karen.
We're going to get to talk about music?
Of course.
Excellent.
Heartfelt piano pop themes speaking to ideas of empowerment, of equality, of love is what I heard listening to your music. How would you describe your music and their messages, Karen?
Timeless, piano-based, melodic. Yeah, heartfelt themes. I'm deeply interested in people and in the human condition. And my songs are about my experiences and what I observe in others. And sometimes they're about, the way that it really could be if we all figured that it was important enough to make
your first song, Curly Queen?
You
mentioned
really
it before.
have, yes.
You mentioned it before. You wrote your first song at the age of 7,
That's
which
right.
was Curly Queen.
That's right, Curly with a K.
Curly with a K.
Because I really wanted curly hair.
And that went on to be the name of your production record
It's
company?
the name of my record label. It's the name of my business.
Yep.
Why
Curly Queen? Like, what was the idea behind Curly Queen?
Well, I just desperately wanted curly hair when I was a child, and I didn't have curly hair, and I still don't have curly hair. But here I am with
Mhm.
the wonders of modern beauty tips. And so curly is spelled with a K.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And your music, Karen, has taken you all over the world as well. You've sung in front of sold out stadiums of over 80,000 people with anthems in
I have.
America and at Suncorp Stadium singing the national anthem. What was that like, singing in front of all those people? And also, I'm curious about singing the American national anthem in front of a packed out stadium. How was it different to singing the Australian anthem? Like singing those two songs, one, you're born in Australia, you're Australian, living in America so long. Yeah, what was the difference? And
Yeah, well, what a privilege when you
yeah.
think about it to be able to go to another country and sing their national song
Mhm.
as a visitor to that country or a transplanted
Mhm.
resident, and to be welcomed to do that. I am passionate about equality,
Mhm.
equality of all kinds. And that example really strikes me as pretty powerful.
Mhm.
And to be able to be welcomed and applauded for doing that, for wanting to do that, is pretty special. And I love the experience of being in a huge arena. And I consider I am representing everybody
Mhm.
by being the person who's leading that national song. So to me, it's a privilege to be able to do that, and to uh, be able to experience and absorb the excited, high vibration energy of 30,000 people or 50,000 people or 80, 90,000 people is extraordinary. And as a child and a young adult, absolutely riddled with anxiety.
Mm.
That this is one of the markers to me that I have done some work,
Yeah.
and to be able to not be terrified of doing that, but to actually thrive on it and to
Mhm.
love the experience of being the representative. And that's how I shape it, I think, so that it isn't something that would make me super anxious, but just to be like, no, this is an honor to be the
Mhm.
one who gets to stand up for all of us.
Mm. So reframing your mindset to service.
Definitely.
I see that, and I think because I'd imagine speaking in front of, well, singing in front of 80,000 people, the ego can probably be like, all these people are looking at me singing, and it could make it worse, right? And whereas if you reframe that mindset, like you said, I'm here, it's a privilege, and I'm giving, I'm serving these people. It's I can see that could help a lot with dealing with that anxiety and being able to perform and give to people and not letting that ego, that mind trap you into
Thinking it's about me.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's such a powerful point,
Mm,
and something that could help anybody who's listening today who may need to stand up in front of even a small group of family members
yeah.
or their team at work, or find themselves in a situation where they're asked to say a few words or have to give a presentation.
Mhm.
It's taken me a long time, but I now understand that when I am standing in front of a group of people, or even when I'm having this conversation with you that will be seen by and heard by a lot of people, I'm here to give something and to contribute something,
Mhm.
not to be looked at.
Mhm.
And if I was all about being looked at, I'd probably be doing things quite differently to the way I'm doing them.
Mhm.
But it took a while for me to really realize that. And I noticed that if I start to get really nervous when I'm about to give some kind of performance, my focus is in the wrong place.
Mm.
So if you are listening and you know that you have to do some kind of presentation and you're super, super nervous, you say, I hate public speaking, or whatever one of those thoughts that you continue to feed, just know it isn't about you. It's
Mhm.
not about me.
Mhm.
I'm here able to share some information, share a message, remind people of who they really are or could be beyond all of the limitations we all put on ourselves, not to be the one who's being looked at.
Mm-hmm. And to come back to equality, Karen, because you just gave us very kindly a CD of 2 CDs of your latest album called I Was a Man. And in the song I Was a Man, the lyrics go, for I was a man, I was not afraid, could walk anywhere, even today. A woman cannot live that way.
Nope, a woman cannot live that way.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it were different, but it still shocks me that 50% of the population is at risk every day and every night. And that as a society, we do not feel that that is important enough to stop the action and make sure that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make sense to me at all. I don't care about all the statistics and all of the reasons why. I just find it completely shocking and unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. What particular are you speaking to here, Karen, when you speak to inequality towards women, and what are the challenges maybe that you're touching on that the statistics, the research is not showing? And what are you speaking to when you speak to this?
I like to bring it down to very simple terms.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be women are not able to walk safely down the street.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? We could spend all day and night debating why.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is 50% of the population cannot walk safely down the street.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I'm interested in a future where our social challenges have been handled so that we can all walk safely down the street.
If you could make one law, Karen, that would help solve this problem of women walking down the street safely, what would be that change, that law that you would implement that everyone would have to follow?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, the answer is going to refer to the fact that the majority of violence is gendered. It's
Mm-hmm.
male violence.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot give you one law, but what I can say is the absolutely overpowering desire of all of us, which includes all men
Mm-hmm.
and all boys, to be willing to be fully responsible for the fact
Mm-hmm.
that this is the case.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as many women and some excellent men want change and are doing incredible work to make these shifts, it will take the majority of men
Mm-hmm.
and boys to fully have this happen,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how that happens, but just imagine, imagine it was just as important that women and men were safe
Mm-hmm.
as it was to have the right to go down to Bunnings every Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're being so authentic, and through your music and through speaking, Karen, that you're advocating for the equal rights of women. And, because I think potentially men look at it in the perspective of, well, women have the rights, and the equality of women it's grown so quickly and come so far in such a short amount of time. I mean, if you look at, I don't know when women were legally allowed to vote. Or not have that statistic, though. Seeing how much progress the feminist movement has also made in such a short amount of time, I think men can potentially use that as it may facade the reality that, there's still a lot of work to be done towards a more safer and equal society for women.
Yeah. And we can talk about walking down the street, which is inspired by the lyric of the song.
Yeah.
But we can also speak about equal pay.
Mm.
And come on.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. I mean, really?
It's.
Makes no sense, right?
Are you hopeful for the future, Karen?
I am.
Mm-hmm.
I am. A lot of very, very good, very educated people doing amazing work in this space.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not fast enough.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the messages and as a huge cockatoo lands right behind Karen there on the coming to. Do you have anything to say there, bud? You want to say something?
Oh, goodness, I don't know. But I think that it's a...
Oh my goodness, guys.
I think it's a good sign. It's a good... Ooh,
Oh my goodness.
that's
Okay.
a good sign.
Well,
I'm taking it as a real positive.
That's an omen.
It's an omen. Can I say something else
Please,
about
Karen.
equality?
Yes.
You know, it begins with our words.
Mm.
And that's something we can all take on. Words matter because the way we use our words, the way we describe ourselves to ourselves, the way we talk about each other and others, you know, it's extremely important. Violent words lead to violence.
Yeah.
The other part of that is if we can keep talking, if we can keep a dialogue happening, we don't move to violence.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'm really committed to literacy and the intentional use of words and education as a pathway to solve and resolve a lot of the issues we're talking about.
It sounds as though that potentially the law could be for everyone to only be able to speak with love and with kindness.
Imagine that.
and with positivity and awareness. And the cockatoo's back.
Is he back? Yeah.
So, like I said, was going to take us to, Karen, is your voice has been over 1 million, well, over 1 billion, I should say, smartphones, GPS devices, and navigation systems. Though, and as a musician, that, I guess, that goal, that ambition as a musician to always, if your voice was to, thanks, buddy, if your voice was to be recognized in that way, you'd be one of the most successful musicians ever, right?
Right.
So could you talk to, I guess, the very unique position that you're in, and that is this unrecognized fame that you have, and how that must feel? Because I look at it as a musician as well. I mean, it must be challenging because all these people are hearing your voice, but no one really recognize who it is. And as a musician, it's kind of the other way around.
I think that it is a very unique kind of notoriety to have a very famous speaking voice and to not have the same recognition when people see me. It's almost like this I'm quite bemused by it because I will hop into a taxi or an Uber and I'll be in the back seat and then I'll hear my voice in the front seat directing the driver, and sometimes I will say something and a lot of the time I won't say anything and it's a delight, really, but it is super unusual.
And I guess it brings us to the point of, I guess, artist remuneration, and I guess the challenges that you've also had to face about dealing with huge, I guess, tech companies and data and I guess not also being recognized for your voice being used so much, and maybe the recognition also financially for ownership has been a challenge that artists are facing, especially with the direction we're moving in with artificial intelligence and this stuff. So could you, explain some of this?
What I'd like to say about that is I am a poster child for artist exploitation. I've had numerous artists reach out to me, voiceover artists, asking for my guidance around contracts that they've been offered to do voice systems way after the one I did. And often those systems, or in every case, those voice systems had a tremendous power imbalance where there was a large corporate entity and the sole voiceover artist, and it was a take it or leave it deal, and there was no ongoing remuneration.
Yeah.
And it's just not right. I find it troubling that this is the goal of a company. Power imbalances don't work. They don't work in a lot of ways. And some might say, oh, yes, but that corporation is going to just hire that person for that small amount of work, and that person isn't putting the, developing the technology and the devices. No, but there is a value. There is a value to the ongoing contribution of that voiceover artist or that musical artist. And we're in a time where there's been a conscious devaluing of music and devaluing of human input, which is troubling at best. And I think it would be certainly would be great if we didn't have to regulate it so that organizations fairly and remunerated artists for their work. And I'm not the first person to say it, and we are in a time in 2025 where there are big conversations happening about AI and intellectual property and artists' IP, and we're having some small wins along the way. But as someone who has been involved for 20 years with my voice in devices, this is, it's the horse has bolted, and it is. I'd love to see a shift. I'd love to see an actual demand from society that value be restored in these kinds of situations.
What does that mean for music?
I don't know how we turn back, but what I do know is that it's insulting to see the total devaluing of music, artists, songwriters. The expectation now is music is free. That's the way it's been set up. So we've got generations who are shocked at the idea of having to buy any music or pay for any music, which leaves us with, well, how are we going to have professional artists who will have the time and the ability to devote to their craft so that they can create beautiful work in an ongoing and sustainable way?
Yeah, it's interesting when I think of true artists like Michelangelo and these people who were just truly devoted to their task, to their art, and how potentially that's changing in today's world. Like speaking to a lot of musicians in Mackay, they say that the music industry is at the forefront of change with artificial intelligence. It's really being influenced very heavily, as well as the acting industry. And I was just curious, Karen, I wonder if we take you back to when you were 7 years old again, and whether you're watching Grease or you see Olivia Newton-John in the advertisement, but she's an AI actor, that this person on the screen is not real, because that's what's happening in today.
Right.
There's actors becoming AI agents. How do you think that would have changed the trajectory of your life? Would you have been inspired? Would that intuition, that inner GPS be triggered?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that what we're seeing is the power of our humanness, of the skills that are going to be most important going forward are the ability to sit still with your own thoughts, to look someone in the eye and have a conversation, to be able to pick up a phone and have a have a meaningful interaction with somebody. You know, they're training how to talk to people on the phone now because that's gone out of favor. But it's this person-to-person connection that is not able to be replicated. You know, we get a hit from being on our phone or we'll get a dopamine hit from being on our phone or getting a message or having a like, but that will not ever compete with the true magic of human-to-human connection. And I think that's worth protecting. Same with live music, by the way. You know, it's one of the... Live music is one of the most powerful experiences, to be in a room having a shared experience of any kind of art. It's precious. It's powerful.
It is. It touches you in a particular way. In Mackay, we've been running this, I'm not sure I've told you, Karen, we've been running this radio program where we bring in live musicians into the studio.
Beautiful.
And we just talk for about an hour and they perform live music. And there's just something about that authenticity, that rawness. And I think you've really summed it up beautifully. In a world that's moving so far away from disconnection, like from connection, and becoming disconnected with phones, and would rather message our friend sometimes next door or down the street rather than call them or visit them. People are craving this.
Connection.
People are craving this.
Something real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what's been feeling really real for you lately, Karen?
Always songwriting. I'm writing songs.
And you've started with Sunday Songwriting Festival. Can you talk about a little bit of that, that, please?
We have 6 professional songwriters coming to the area in we put them in a house or an accommodation, and for 4 days in different combinations, collaborating and writing songs. So it's a songwriting retreat. And then on the last day, we make it available for local songwriters to come and be part of workshops and then be mentored by those professional songwriters. And in the evening, we present a concert and conversation event where we interview each of the professional songwriters. They will perform one of their songs. You know, we've had amazing artists like Wendy Matthews and Vicar and Linda and Tony Childs and Jude York come. And we will also, every year for the last 4 years, and we have the 5th one coming up next year, we've then had the performance of songs written in the residency literally the day before. So we take our audience behind the scenes of the creative and songwriting process. And it's a very, it's a really beautiful experience of connection, creative experience.
How do you write songs, Karen? What is your process in writing and creating?
How do I write songs? In lots of different ways. Sometimes I'm walking down the street or I'm driving my car and an idea pops into my mind. Sometimes I will sit at the piano and I have nothing. Most of the time, though, I will have been meditating and I will hear a melody and a lyric come to me through my meditation, and I will then capture it and then continue meditating, even though I initially was really troubled when I was having these songs come to me during meditation, because when you meditate, you're supposed to only meditate. Yeah. Don't interrupt for anything. So one day, after ignoring these song messages that were coming to me, I was like, this idea is too good. And I grabbed my voice memo and I sang it into my phone, and then I kept going. And I did a review of my transcendental meditation course with a teacher, and there was a time where we could ask questions, and I asked this question. I put my hand up and I said, look, this is what's happening with my songwriting during meditation. And the teacher thankfully said, oh, this is an unusual situation where I would say it is perfectly okay for you to capture that idea and then go back to meditating, and then asked me if I was familiar with the Beatles going to India and learning to meditate with the Maharishi, and that the form of meditation that I was actually learning and practicing was from that same guru.
Lineage. Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
From the Beatles.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I now, many of my songs are written because they come to me during meditation.
Do you feel they come from a higher place?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. My entire album, The Slipstream, was basically downloads.
How do you get people, how do you teach that? The unteachable, that channeling? I mean,
be willing to sit and be quiet and be with your own thoughts. It's a focus, I'm sure. You know, it's getting all of that other noise out of the way. And will that happen to everybody? Maybe, maybe not. But it happens to me, and I love it. I'm so grateful that I'm able to write that way.
And as we look out, Karen, in the sun's setting in beautiful Airlie Beach, where you have called home now for the last 5 years, what's your advice to young people, and especially young people that grow up in small communities that have big dreams like you did? What would your advice be to those that are looking to do what you did?
Well, I would say to surround yourself with people who are like-minded. And if it's challenging to find those people around you, just find them. And if you find you are sharing dreams that you have and people are being negative about that or shutting you down, maybe they're not your people. And to continue to capture what it is you really want to be doing. Write it down. I'm a big fan of a pen and paper, like an actual journal. But if the notes app in your phone is what you have and that makes it easy, do that. But allow yourself to daydream. Know that it is never too late to recalculate, and it is never too late to take steps toward the kind of life you would love. If you don't love your life right now, there is somebody who can do something about it, and that somebody is you. And it may seem like your circumstances are bigger than you are, but I promise you they're not.
Karen, thank you so much for today. I just want to see if we can end on something. Could you, Denzel, pass me my phone, please?
You have reached your destination.
Hey, Siri, can you please say a very warm and beautiful welcome on my behalf? No, very warm and beautiful thank you on my behalf.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Thank you.
Can you please say thank you?
See, it's going to have to be connection human to human. That's how it's going to have to work.
I think you're exactly right there, Karen. No matter how hard we try to use technology in life, it's always just going to be human to human. And thank you so much for sitting down, Karen, and having this beautiful conversation. It's so nice to see you back home in Australia and creating community, creating spaces of creativity, and also being a voice, literally a voice, the voice for equality, empowerment, and following your dreams.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. You know, it's been very fortunate to be here for the last 5 years, back where it all started, and to be able to contribute in an artistic and creative way, especially with the Whitsunday Songwriter Festival and the Whitsundays Writers Festival. And I've loved our conversation, and you have reached your destination.